they used some American thought process to turn into a great baseball franchise by using statistics to value some undervalued players. So from that, we need more launch pads for some more success in America. We need hyperconnectivity across the nation. This is all Friedman's words. Schools need to prepare students for jobs because right now many companies are having positions open for 6 or more months just because students are not learning specific skills in school. They're just going to school, staying stagnant in what they learn, and not really moving past what they know in the classroom. Students need to know what to prepare for, learn specific skills. This is at a university level or at a vocational level. And not just in highly technical fields, but in all fields, we as America are struggling to find people to fill positions from this generation that's passing through now, including welders, nursing aides, nuclear technicians, and nutritionists, to name a few. So Friedman has a proposal, and that proposal is to help out this job crisis. A $15,000 per year tax on law and business school tuition, and a $15,000 per year tuition subsidy on engineering, science, and vocational studies. I'll just let you think about that for a second. America has a lot of room to grow. The American tourism industry is rising. We were falling in the early 2000s. We fell to $14 billion in 2001, and we're steadily rising again, and we reached $21 billion in 2006, and that is still growing, but we need room for jobs in the tourism industry, and even in the tourism industry, people aren't qualified enough. The smart investments need to be made by the U.S. government, and they're realizing now where they need to put their money. In 2009, $2.4 billion in startup grants was given by the federal government to small startup companies that were looking into research for electric batteries and different kinds of electric storage. And the goal of that was the electric car is soon to be an iPad on wheels. That is, it can just be manufactured really fast. It seems like everybody has one. Everybody just has an electric car that they have sitting out. They don't really use that much, but hey, it's there. You can use it if you want. Job hunting past the valley of death. Friedman considers Silicon Valley to be the valley of death. And all these people are coming, whether they are immigrants or from America, with these great products, these great ideas that work great in the laboratory setting, but they come to Silicon Valley, and do they actually work? Will people take them out? This is where you can find the maximum risk and the maximum return, and this does not need to be where the government is putting their subsidies into, not their subsidies, but their grants into. This should be private investors. This is where America will prosper on a private level. And digitized companies have it easy. Friedman calls them bits and bytes companies. Places that do programming, things that are all in the lab setting. It all stays digitized. There's no nature influence on it. And this started from who's going to buy those first 5,000 cell phones? When cell phones first came out, it was a very high risk, maximum return situation. And Friedman will lose 2 cell phones. Fisker Auto in Delaware is or Fisker Electric Cars made a plant in Delaware from an old DuPont plant that was just kind of rotting away. And Governor Jack Markell pledged to buy the first few cars off the line, didn't even paint them himself. He didn't want the company to paint them. That would be an extra expense. He gave them a $21.5 million 5-year no-interest loan because he knew that Delaware needed these jobs, and even helped out with the training for some of the individuals in their first days, in their first few months there. He says, Governor Markell says, you want to reduce the friction and make it impossible for them to move somewhere else. In conclusion, the way I see it, anyway, Friedman is saying that America needs to update its formula for prosperity. Less people need to get the word. We cannot ride on a reputation of the past. We need to adapt and move forward. And jobs from the past are now facing hardy global competition from especially China, but also from Brazil and India. And he ends with, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, it is to act with yesterday's logic. And that is chapter 14.
Okay, I'm Mr. Wheeler. I'm on the fighting salmon team. I was absolutely ecstatic to find that picture because team member Gary came up with this. I love that. This chapter is called Shock Therapy. It's very boring because it's about politics, but it's got some good stuff in it. It starts out talking about this guy who I'm just going to call Mr. T because I don't know how to say that. And he was born in the 1800s. He's a French aristocrat, and he visited America in 1831 and 1832, and he went there to study the prisons, but he came back and wrote a book called Democracy in America, which turned out to be a really influential book because it really kind of pegged Americans as far as our mindset and how we do things. And Friedman starts out telling you about him. He wants to, he asks a question. What if he was born in 1970 instead of 1805? What would happen? Instead of being an aristocrat, which wouldn't matter anymore, he might go to Harvard or Stanford Business School, study abroad, and then join an international consulting firm. Then he says, suppose his consulting firm goes and is asked to make an assessment of the United States as a viable place to do business, not just now, but in the future. And he includes this little 4-page thing of what this conclusion might have looked like if Mr. T had written it. And he starts out saying, 20 years ago, this report wouldn't even have been commissioned because the U.S. was the place to do business. You didn't go anywhere else. If you wanted your business to be successful, you were in the United States. But it's not the truth anymore. And it's sad because there's all these things going on, these federal budget deficits, the unemployment, this dependence on foreign oil, students' test scores are getting lower, and companies are relocating, and the national debate is consumed with absurd distractions, he says, things that don't actually matter. And Americans are getting more pessimistic about the future. It's not really the economy that's the problem, he says, but the problem is the political side of it. Not the system itself, but politics. What we need is some shock therapy. What that means is that, like I said, the system is malfunctioning. We're stuck on these irrelevant policies that don't really make a difference. I don't know if y'all saw, but all over Facebook this week has been all this gay marriage rights stuff. That's nice and all, but how is this going to help the federal budget deficit? It's not. That's what he's saying. It's not broken. It just needs to be fixed. And the way to fix that is with a strong, independent, or third-party candidate who embodies what he calls the radical center. because like the Republicans and the Democrats, they're all on the extreme ends, left or right here. And what we need, he says, is someone in the center, someone that's strong and can provide a shock. What he means by shock is, give an example of this actually, but they may not win. A lot of times third parties don't win, and that's not good for them, because it creates this mindset that that they're going to fail, and so why should I vote for them if they're going to fail? They don't do that. You don't want to vote for them because you know they're going to lose. So it's kind of a self-replicating process here. It doesn't work very well. And you give some examples then of, I forgot to mention this. When they're defeated though, even if they're defeated, they cause change, because it kind of scares the two main parties saying that we don't have this right. We have to connect with these other groups. And he gives examples. Like in 1968, George Wallace, he was a former Alabama governor. He ran against Nixon. He got 13.5% of the popular vote, and Nixon got 43.4%. It scared Nixon so bad that he appointed this plan called his Southern Strategy, because most of the states that Wallace had were from the South. So he started the Southern Strategy thing, and he even appointed a guy to keep watch over the South to make sure that the interests of those people were being satisfied. And then, in 1992, Ross Perot went up against Clinton, and he took 18.9% of the popular vote. Again, this scared him a lot. Clinton went so far as to, like, the very first thing he did when he got in office was to work on the federal budget deficit, which is the exact thing that Perot was campaigning on at all. That was his main point, was the federal budget deficit. It scared him so bad that he went and did that anyway. The biggest example, though, is with Teddy Roosevelt. In 1912, he'd already been president from 1901 to 1909, but he won it again in 1912, and he went up against Taft and Woodrow Wilson, and he won 29.4% of the popular vote. It scared him so bad that every single policy that he wanted to enact was eventually enacted. Just because he got that many votes. He didn't win, he didn't have to win. It showed everybody else that they were missing something. And so it scared him so bad they had to fix it. And his own party liked him so much that they started calling the Bull Moose Party after he said that he was as healthy as a bull moose. And I like that, because he was so awesome. And Friedman then goes on to say, well, imagine what it would be like if we had a serious third-party candidate right now. If we had somebody up there on the national debate floor that was honest and open and straightforward in answering the questions, like what would that make the others look like? You know, they're always this political double talk all the time. You don't really know what they're saying half the time, but if somebody's up there next to them saying, like being open and honest and specific in their answers, it would make the rest of them look like liars. And they would raise the standard for everything. He says we need a leader that will inspire us, inspire more hope in our country again, that we can be and are the best. And that's what we're missing now. So, this chapter was kind of boring, but still. You said our political system is stagnant. We need a shock. We need a strong third-party candidate that can sway the policies and where our country's headed, even if they're defeated.